If you think a cemetery is the safest place to be at night because, hey, everyone there is already dead, I need you to hold that thought. Because in the early 1980s on the island of Okinawa, Japan, I lived across from a cemetery that didn't follow that rule. And the woman who lived next door warned me that something down there was still very much awake. This is a true story, and by the end of it, you're going to understand exactly why I never set foot on those steps again. My dad was in the military, and he had this philosophy. The world would make better men out of my brother and me. So instead of staying safely on base in Okinawa, he moved us into a small Japanese neighborhood. Off base, fully immersed, no American bubble to hide in. We ended up at the top of a hill in a cul-de-sac that overlooked two things. On one side, a massive zoo with the jungle so thick between us and the monkey habitats that it looked ripped straight out of an Indiana Jones set. One that the neighborhood kids and I toured through constantly, ignoring every warning about the snakes left over from World War II. But on the other side of the cul-de-sac was a cemetery. And not the kind you're picturing. We were the only American family in that neighborhood, surrounded by Japanese families who barely spoke our language. And somehow, we understood each other perfectly anyway. Right across from us lived an older couple. The wife asked us to call her Mama-san. She had this gorgeous garden, and she would lure my brother and I over constantly with green tea and chocolate banana cookies to help her tend it. We loved her. Everyone in that neighborhood was warm, generous, and welcoming, except for one thing about Mama-san's house. It looked directly out over that cemetery. Because Okinawa is an island, they don't really bury their dead, they build crypts. Huge, polished stone arches set over square tombs, built right into the hillsides. Offerings of food, flowers, incense, and money left out on stone shelves for the dead. Hundreds of these crypts climbing two entire hillsides connected by crumbling ancient stone staircases. It was beautiful in the daylight. At night, it was something more unsettling. One evening, Mama-san asked to speak with me, alone. I felt special and important. I had no idea I should have felt afraid. She sat me down on an old wooden bench carved with 3 images of fishermen and swordsmen and brought out tea and rice cakes. The sky was turning pink and orange. Peaceful, almost too peaceful. And then she told me she'd seen us, me, my brother, and the other kids, daring each other to walk down into that cemetery after dark. She wanted to tell me why that was a terrible mistake. What she told me next took me straight back to World War II, a story about wartime propaganda, fear, and hundreds of Japanese citizens who, believing American soldiers were monsters, threw themselves off a cliffside rather than be captured. I had never heard anything like it. I actually started to cry. But Mama-san held my hand and told me the worst part hadn't happened yet. One young mother, she said, made the same leap with her 2 children. She survived, fell into a coma for months, and when she finally woke up, her children were gone, buried somewhere below in an unmarked crypt among hundreds of others. No name, no way to find them. She searched night after night. She wandered that cemetery, crying out for her kids, the grief eating her alive, until one day she walked into the ocean, hoping the sea would reunite her with them. It didn't. And because she took her own life, Mama-san said, she was never allowed to rest. She was doomed to wander forever. The sun by this point had completely disappeared behind the hills. The cemetery below us had gone pitch black, just a few dim, broken lights flickering along the main path. And that's when Mama-san said the sentence that still gives me chills to this day. She still wanders the cemetery, looking for her kids. You can hear her crying. Then she pointed down into the dark. I didn't want to look. I looked anyway. In the back of the cemetery, half swallowed by shadow, there was a figure, white, shimmering faintly, moving slow, swaying side to side like it was drifting between the crypts. And then I heard it, crying, soft at first, then low moans, whimpers of pain, getting closer. I wanted to run. My legs were begging me to run, but Mama-san just held my hand tighter and whispered that we were safe. She wouldn't come up this far. That's why, she said, you never go down there after dark. She told me some people in the neighborhood didn't know the real story. They just called the figure the White Witch, and that name angered her. Mama-san said it was better to pray for her. She said she came out to visit the woman sometimes, hoping that one day she'd finally find peace. I never went back down to that cemetery again, not once, not even in daylight with a crowd, and I never sat alone with Mama's son in that garden at night again either. I did go to the site where it all began, though, a place now known as Peace Prayer Park. I stood there and cried the entire visit, praying for every soul lost on that cliffside, overwhelmed by the kindness of the very people whose ancestors had suffered so much because of fear and war. It's been over 40 years now, and I still think about her, the woman in white, still searching, still calling out for her children she'll probably never find. Sometimes I wonder, if I went back to that hillside in Okinawa today, stood at the top of those broken steps, and looked down once the sun went out completely, would she still be there? If this true ghost story gave you chills, make sure you're subscribed to my channel. I post horror stories and paranormal encounters every week. Drop a comment if you've ever heard your own unexplainable experience overseas. Stay safe out there, and maybe don't take that shortcut through the cemetery.